At the break of dawn, lively music echoed through the quiet streets, signaling the start of the final and most anticipated day of the fiesta. The once sleepy town burst into life as bells chimed joyfully, fireworks exploded in the sky, and people, still weary from the previous day's celebrations, were pulled from their beds by the infectious excitement in the air. Today was the climax of the festival, the true heart of the celebration. There was a palpable sense of competition. The brethren of the Venerable Tertiary Order, determined to outshine their rivals from the Holy Rosary, prepared with the precision of soldiers going into battle. They had bought more candles than ever before, their piety fueling a sense of superiority. The Chinese merchants who sold the candles were thrilled with the business, and some even considered converting to Christianity, although gossip whispered it was more about finding wives than faith. The pious women in town, however, clung to hope. Even if it's for marriage, they said, their wives will lead them to true conversion, as the townspeople dressed in their finest, pulling out precious heirlooms from chests long hidden away, the streets filled with color. The sharpers and gamblers, who usually slinked through the shadows, now strutted about in embroidered camisas, their outfits adorned with diamond studs and heavy gold chains. Their wealth was displayed as openly as their intentions. They wore wide-brimmed white straw hats and walked with a swagger, knowing they were being watched. In contrast, the old sage of the town was indifferent to the excitement around him. He wore the same modest, dark-striped cinema shirt, buttoned all the way to the neck, and his loose shoes clacked on the cobblestone as he walked. His wide gray felt hat shielded his face from the morning sun, making him stand out even more among the extravagantly dressed crowd. "You look sadder than ever," said the town's teniente mayor as he approached the old man, his voice filled with mock cheer. "Can't you be happy, even just today? We have so much sorrow in our lives. What's wrong with celebrating once in a while?" The old sage shook his head, his expression unchanged. "To be happy doesn't mean to act like fools," he replied, his tone stern. "What you call a celebration is nothing but an orgy of waste, a senseless squandering of money while misery and hunger persist all around us." "But old friend," Don Filipo, a town official, chimed in with a laugh, though there was a hint of seriousness in his voice, "you know I agree with you. I've spoken against these extravagant fiestas. But what can we do? The Gobernadorcillo and the curate run things here. I have no choice." The old man stopped and turned to Don Filipo, his gaze hard. "Then resign," he said simply before continuing on his way, his footsteps slow but deliberate. Don Filipo stood still for a moment, watching the sage walk away. "Resign?" he muttered to himself. "If this office were an honor, I might, but when it's a burden—" Meanwhile, in front of the church, the scene was chaotic but festive. Men and women in their best attire moved in and out of the wide doors, greeting one another with excitement. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder, fresh flowers, incense, and perfumes. Bombs, rockets, and firecrackers exploded continuously, causing women to shriek and run in playful fright while children laughed and chased one another. Bands marched through the streets, playing lively music, while flags and banners fluttered in the wind. Even the occasional panic, when horses pulling carriages became spooked by the noise and reared up, added to the excitement. The Hermano Mayor for the day, tasked with organizing the feast, was determined to make the day unforgettable. He had sent out his servants to personally invite anyone they encountered to partake in the food and drinks. These invitations were not mere suggestions, but demands, as if no one could refuse the generosity being offered. Inside the church, a special mass was about to take place, the Grand Dalmatic Mass, with Padre Salvi officiating. But all eyes were on Padre Damaso, who was to give the sermon. His reputation as a powerful orator had drawn people from all over, including the town's most important officials, like the provincial alcalde and the Spanish elite. Even the alferez, who had his share of grievances with the priests, decided to attend, eager to hear the famous preacher. Before the Mass began, a newspaper correspondent had already drafted a glowing report. We have had the special privilege of hearing the illustrious Reverend Fray Damaso Verdolagas, former curate of this town, preach a most profound and eloquent sermon. His words flowed with grace and boldness, captivating both the enlightened Spaniards and the simple natives. Truly a spiritual experience unlike any other. However, there was a problem. Padre Damaso, who had enjoyed himself a little too much the night before, feasting on ice cream and attending the town's evening show, had fallen ill. Complaining of a sore throat and cough, he wanted to back out of giving the sermon. But no one else could speak as knowledgeably about the life of San Diego, the town's patron saint. After much persuasion, the other priests convinced him to go ahead, and his former housekeeper nursed him back to health with remedies like liniments, raw eggs, and warm cloths. He reluctantly agreed, though he sacrificed his usual breakfast of fried chicken and Laguna cheese for a simple glass of milk and crackers. At 8:30 a.m., the grand procession began, with Padre Salvi walking humbly beneath the canopy, his eyes lowered in solemn prayer. The floats that followed were spectacular, especially the one carrying the statue of San Diego de Alcalá, made of ivory and adorned with a gold-embroidered satin mantle. As the procession moved down the streets, it passed by a beautifully decorated house where Capitan Tiago, Maria Clara, Ibarra, and several Spanish officials watched from the balcony. Padre Salvi briefly looked up but did not acknowledge them. His attention remained on the religious proceedings. Suddenly, a young woman in mourning appeared in the crowd below, holding a baby in her arms. The child, fair-skinned and rosy-cheeked, reached out and giggled, calling out, "Papa, Papa," when it saw Padre Salvi. The young woman, horrified, quickly covered the baby's mouth and fled the scene. The crowd, especially the Spaniards, exchanged knowing glances and smirks. Padre Salvi's face turned pale, then red with embarrassment. Whispers filled the air, though no one could confirm any connection between the woman and the priest. And so the fiesta continued, a blend of devotion, spectacle, and silent scandals.